If men define situations are real, they are real in their consequences, wrote William I Thomas. As a result of their failure to comprehend the operation of the self-fulfilling prophecy, many Americans of good will retain enduring ethnic and racial prejudices. They experience these beliefs, not as prejudices, not as prejudgments, but as irresistible products of their own observation. The facts of the case permit them no other conclusion. If it appears to the white-in group that African Americans are not educated in the same measure as themselves, that they have an unduly high proportion of unskilled workers and an unduly low proportion of successful businessmen, that they are thriftless, and so on through the catalog of middle-class virtue and sin, it is not difficult to understand the charge that the African American is inferior to the white. Sensitized to the workings of the self-fulfilling prophecy, we should be prepared to find that the anti-black charges which are not patently false are only speciously true. They are true to the extent that we have found self-fulfilling prophecies in general to be true. Thus, if the dominant in-group believes that African Americans are inferior, and sees to it that funds for education are not wasted on these incompetents, and then proclaim as final evidence of this inferiority that African Americans have proportionately only 1/5 as many college graduates as whites, one can scarcely be amazed by this transparent bit of social sleight of hand. Having seen the rabbit carefully though not too adroitly placed in the hat, we can only look askance at the triumphant air with which it is finally produced. In fact, it is a little embarrassing to note that a larger proportion of black than of white high school graduates have gone on to college. Apparently the blacks who are hardy enough to scale the high walls of discrimination represent an even more highly selected group than the run of the high school white population. So, too, when the gentleman from Mississippi, a state that spends 5 times as much on the average white pupil as on the average African American pupil, proclaims the essential inferiority of the African American by pointing to the per capita ratio of physicians among African Americans as less than 1/4 that of whites, we are impressed more by his scrambled logic than by his profound prejudices. So plain is the mechanism of the self-fulfilling prophecy in these instances that only those forever devoted to the victory of sentiment over fact can take these specious evidences seriously. Yet the spurious evidence often creates a genuine belief. Self-hypnosis through one's own propaganda is a not infrequent phase of the self-fulfilling prophecy. So much for outgroups being damned, if they don't, apparently, manifest in group virtues. It is a tasteless bit of ethnocentrism, seasoned with self-interest. But what of the second phase of this process? Can one seriously mean that outgroups are also damned if they do possess these virtues? One can. The story of Abe. Let us begin by focusing on Abe Lincoln, a true American hero. Even the schoolboy knows Lincoln was thrifty, hard-working, eager for knowledge, ambitious, devoted to the rights of the average man, and eminently successful in climbing the ladder of opportunity from the lowermost rung of laborer to the respectable heights of merchant, lawyer, and eventually president. With this in mind, we are prepared to observe how the very same behavior undergoes a complete change of evaluation in its transition from in-group Abe Lincoln to the out-group Abe Cohen or Abe Kurokawa. We proceed systematically. Did Abe Lincoln work far into the night? Yes. This testifies that he was industrious, resolute, perseverant, and eager to realize his capacities to the fullest. Do the out-group Jews or Japanese keep these same hours? Yes. This only bears witness to their sweatshop mentality, their ruthless undercutting of American standards, their unfair competitive practices. Or, as the Prime Minister of France recently commented, these little yellow men stay up all night thinking of ways to screw Europeans and Americans. Is the in-group hero frugal, thrifty, and sparing? Then the out-group villain is stingy, miserly and penny-pinching. All honor is due the in-group Abe for his having been smart, shrewd, and intelligent and, by the same token, all contempt is owing the out-group Abes for their being sharp, cunning, crafty, and too clever by far. Did the indomitable Abe Lincoln refuse to remain content with a life of work with the hands? Did he prefer to make use of his brain? Then, all praise for his plucky climb up the shaky ladder of opportunity. But, of course, the eschewing of manual work for brain work among the merchants and lawyers of the outgroup deserves nothing but censure for a parasitic way of life. Was Abe Lincoln eager to learn the accumulated wisdom of the ages by unending study? Yes. The trouble with Jew is that he's a greasy grind, with his head always in a book, while decent people are going to a show or ball game. Was the resolute Lincoln unwilling to limit his standards to those of his provincial community? No. This what we would expect of a man of vision. And if the outgroupers criticize the vulnerable areas of our society, then send them back where they came from. Did Lincoln, rising high above his origins, never forget the rights of the common man and applaud the right of workers to strike? Yes. This testifies only that, like all real Americans, this greatest of Americans was deathlessly devoted to the cause of freedom. But, as you examine the statistics on strikes, remember that these un-American practices are the result of outgroupers, communists, pursuing their evil agitation among otherwise contented workers. If men-defined situations are real, they are real in their consequences, wrote William I Thomas. As a result of their failure to comprehend the operation of the self-fulfilling prophecy, many Americans of good will retain enduring ethnic and racial prejudices. They experience